This assignment is an assignment for the old western town. We'll be modifying this image, deleting some items, and adding other items. First of all, what we'll start with is removing all the people, the pavement, anything that looks modern in the scene, and we'll replace it with other items here. I'd like to demonstrate to you different methods of selection and modification that should help you for other assignments as well in the future. First of all, you'll need to get the picture, and you can download that off of Blackboard. When you do, you'll open it up in Photoshop, and it will probably be a locked layer. I recommend that whenever you change a picture, that you make a copy of that image. If you select the layer with the image on it of the train, go to the layers palette, and in the top right hand corner you'll see a flyout menu where you can select it and duplicate the layer. And you can name this duplicate layer if you would like to. So in this case we can call it duplicate. That's not a problem. That way, if ever you have to come back and redo it, you can you don't have to start all over. I don't like damaging the original. So I'm going to go ahead and hide this the original layer, and we'll work off of the duplicate layer. To start with, we have the tools on the left hand side. We'll have selection tools and drawing tools as well, and I'll be going through that shortly. Let's start with the selection of the sky itself. We're going to be replacing this in the future with a sunset, so we're going to need to delete this sky. To do so, we can do it a number of ways. Depending on the picture, for example, this one has a tree in it, and to try and get around, select around all of those little leaves and things would be virtually impossible. So I mean, with the lasso tool. The lasso tool is this one here, which is a freehand selection. We also have the polygonal lasso tool and the magnetic. The magnetic lasso tool is really cool if you're going around an object, and it has high contrast. It does a great job. But I'm going to drop down to the to demonstrate, I'm going to just drop down to the quick selection tool and show you what that one does. That's pretty awesome as well. So I'm going to go ahead and click and drag, and as I drag, it's selecting the dark objects that I have here. So it does a really very quick job of doing a selection. Let me just keep going here. If you select too much of an object, you can hold the Alt key and you can subtract. But I'm going to continue adding just a little bit here. For example, there, but right in the middle of there, I have a little bit of a problem, but that doesn't, I can't get that selection. Oh, let me go to the Alt key, subtract some of that blue from there and from there. I don't want this white tower that's up above the water tower, but I do have that. Alright, well, this isn't ideal, as I said, but it is a really cool tool that can help you in the future. I'm going to use a different method now and show you that that process, because right now this tree would be very difficult to select. So to deselect the selection that we have, we can go to Command, and the shortcut is Command D, and that deselects everything that was there. We're going to go to the next tool, the magic wand tool, and I use that quite frequently. It's really good. And right up above, you'll see when you select that tool, we have a menu bar here, and it has the tolerance of 32. It has a type of point sample, and it has different contiguous, anti-alias. It has different items here. If we hold the Shift key, we can continue adding to the selection, and I can keep going this way. And I didn't select everything because it would be very difficult to select inside here. So how do I select inside the tree and down below here and all of this other part without selecting the objects I don't want? Well, what I'm going to do, there's a really cool feature in Photoshop and Illustrator, and what I would do is I would go to Select, and I would select Similar in this case, and what that does is, okay, look at that, I've got all of that blue sky selected. I've got inside of the tower here. Problem is that I have some of this lighter color selected as well. So I can click the Alt key and I can deselect some of these items here that weren't items that I wanted to be selected. Right down here, there's the cow catcher, or whatever that's called. So I want to deselect all of this portion here. Alright, that's taking a little time, but it's a good method of getting what you need, making a selection. There is one other method that I used as well. It's similar to this, and I want to show you that method as well. Let me show you one other feature here that Photoshop is really good at, and that's something called the mask, edit in quick mask mode. In the left hand side there's a toolbox, and at the bottom of the toolbox you'll see the foreground and background colors, but you'll also see edit in quick mask mode just below that. When I do that, it fills the picture, what I have selected and what I don't have selected. It fills that image. Now what I can do is refine the selection by going to the brush tool. I can change the size of the brush itself, which makes it a little bit better. I can change the opacity of the brush. I'm going to go to 100%. And now what I can do is I can paint. Now when I paint, I have the foreground color, which is black. You can see the black square at the bottom of the toolbox and the white square. You can switch that around by clicking the arrow key. I'm going to go ahead and paint all of this white in here that the selection randomly, it selected it when I used that other tool, the selection tool. So I'm going to just paint in all of this that I definitely want in here. I'm just going to brush over it very quickly. I can see that, oops, now this brush is a soft brush and I want a hard brush. So I'm going to go down here and I'm going to change this to a harder brush instead of a soft brush, so I can get more of a refined selection here along the edge of the train, because I noticed that it was starting to select some of the sky. If you have a problem and you select too much, let's say I go over here like this. Oops, that's a problem. I can do undo, that's sure. But if you do go over it, you can use the switching it back and forth to a foreground color. You can make the white come to the foreground, and as you do that, then you can go ahead and delete anything that maybe you went over too far. All right. Let's see here. When you're done, you can select the edit in standard mode. Select that again and look again to see if there are any of these marching ants. And I can see some right in here. All right, I'm going to go ahead and paint that some more. Oops, undo, because what I did was I didn't switch it back. Now the shortcut key for going back and forth is the letter X, which will make the foreground color switch with the background color. Okay, so if I go over that, it's possible that when I went over it before it wasn't 100% solid, so it didn't actually cover up all of that. And I'm going to look over this one more time carefully to see if I have everything done. It looks good. All right, I promised you one other method of selection, and so I'm going to deselect what I've done and show you the next method. The next method is a selection tool, which is one that I will show you in the future as well of this assignment, but the rectangular marquee tool. Now there are other selection tools like the elliptical marquee tool and single row and single column, but in this case I'm just going to make a selection of color and then go up to select and select similar. Whoa, that was fairly fast. Again, if I want to, I'm going to undo that. I was going to say I can change the tolerance, but not in this case. I'm sorry. So I'm going to go ahead and continue on with this. So that is also a selection tool method. Now I've got to go ahead and again use the quick mask tool. I'll use the brush tool. I'll change that to white as a foreground color so I can get rid of some of this that I don't want. And I will change it again to the black to be the foreground and fill in this portion here. And make sure that these people aren't selected here as well, although we will be deleting them from the picture. Alright, let me just see what I have. See if there are any marching ants. I can see that this selection wasn't quite as good as the previous one, but it's not bad. Okay. We will be deleting this portion. If I hit the delete key, all of that will be gone. There is another method of working in here. We will be creating a I guess I'm not quite ready for that. We will put a sunset in the background later. So let's go ahead. I'm just going to hit delete just so that I can see what I have and what I don't have. Well, all right. Command D for deselect. And at this point, I need to delete the amusement park ride here. So I'm going to zoom in just a bit using the zoom tool. I'll use the eraser, and I can change the eraser size a little bit larger. It's also the hardness. I can just delete all of this portion here. Again, what I could do is use the eyedropper tool. Actually, I haven't shown you that portion. I can select the eyedropper tool and that brings it into the foreground, and I could also delete it, items that way. Select similar, actually I'm sorry, I would select similar and then delete that. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and delete the rest of that. Oops, I'm sorry. And zoom down a little bit closer here to the tool. Now as you zoom in, this technique is important here. I'm going to go back to the eraser tool. As you zoom in, be careful. You'll be erasing those items there. One of the things that I do is use the spacebar tool. It allows you to move without changing your tools and keep that. Now there are shortcuts for each tool as well, which in this case, if you look at the eraser tool, the letter E is the one for the eraser tool. Well, that's easy to remember. I recommend highly that you learn some of the shortcuts. It will speed up the process, and it definitely will impress people who want to hire you in the future. I'm going to go ahead and zoom down and delete this portion as well. And even smaller yet. And I have gone down to even 1 pixel. I'll get rid of this portion here. And we need to delete all of the red in this item here. A little bit smaller. I can put a number there. This is just 1 pixel. I just wanted to get rid of this red portion that's in here. Okay, using the spacebar tool to be able to move it over, I'm now going to increase the size of the tool so it goes a little bit faster. I have to be careful. And reduce it just a little bit smaller again to get the red out of there. Okay, the shortcut key for zooming out or in, Command minus, zooms out. Again, the spacebar key for shifting that over. Now on the top of the tower, we'll also have to delete this portion, this little white tower. And again, I can use the eraser tool. Another tool that also is another method would be the lasso tool. And I can just draw around the object itself. I probably should have gotten some more of that. So I don't have to have a perfect selection, but I'm going to go there, and then I'm going to hit the delete key. Command D for deselect. So I don't always have to use the eraser to be able to delete objects. Command D for deselect. Alright, Command minus again to zoom out. And I notice that on the left hand side there's also a white tower, or I mean a roller coaster or something that's in there that I need to delete. Now in this selection, I can see that it didn't get rid of everything there. I'm going to go ahead and use the lasso tool again and at least delete this portion here. Command D for deselect. Command minus, and let's zoom out just a little bit. Yeah, these leaves that are here aren't even connected to a branch. Command D for deselect. I could use the magic wand and select this shade of gray to try and get rid of it. we'll see how we do. I can do that right there. Now with the magic wand tool, you can change the tolerance setting, which right now the default is 32. And that would, if I wanted at 5, then it would do a smaller selection than a larger number, obviously. So select similar. In Illustrator, you can select similar fill color, stroke color, all sorts of different things. But right now that did not work. So I'm going to go ahead and Command deselect all of that, and let's see what happens later. Okay, we're going to back off here. We now need to select all of this tarmac. We're going to delete the words here. We're going to delete the people. And we have a whole bunch more work to do. So let's go ahead again. I demonstrated on the sky. I showed you the selection tool, the quick selection tool, and I think this will work quite well with this subject matter here. So we're going to go ahead and select the people. I don't want to select the fence. I just want the people. And that's about as well as I can do. Let's zoom in there and see what I have. Alright, spacebar, just move it over just a bit. We want to keep this fence that's here as well. I'm going to increase the selection just a little bit. Let's change it to be a bit smaller size. And I'm going to try and keep that person's... Oh, that did not work. So I might have to just change that or do it later. Again, I can use the quick mask, which I enjoy using. And I think hopefully by the end of this you'll also learn it. And then we'll also use the the brush tool here to go ahead and refine this selection just a bit. Smaller size, and I'm going to go ahead and it's a fill, so I better undo that. Click the X key, which allows me to get the top of his head. The other thing that we're going to have to do here is go ahead and fill this in. This isn't a person, so better fill that in. Select around the arm there and around his face. Go ahead and X key so I can get the top of the head. And I also need to keep or block this out as well. So I'm going to try and delete this portion. All of this should be blocked as well. The inside of here. Let's see what we have. By clicking on the quick mask and checking to see what we have here. That's not too bad. Again, I see a few more things. The X key shortcut to get the top of his head. And that might be someone right there as well. Okay, let's see. So dark in some portions, I'm not even sure whether that's a person that's here or part of the train or what that is. Let's leave it the way it is. At this point, Command minus for zooming out. Oh, I see a few more things here, but that's not too bad. The mask tool, and I'm going to change the size of that brush, and I'm going to just do this portion here because we're deleting that as well. Back to the quick mask tool, I'm going to hit delete, and that portion is gone, and I made a mistake because I want to keep the fence. So back to the quick mask tool, zoom into this portion, and what I need to do, I'm getting a little confused here, the brush tool, I need to have this fence remain, so I need it red, and the other clear. I think I did this backwards. So let's go back to here, change the size, and I need to fill that fence post. I should have done this in the selection rather than by hand. It would have been a little easier than trying to paint all of this. But here we go. It'll work. This brush is slightly large. I can just put in here, instead of dragging that, I can actually make it smaller numerically by just putting the number 10 in there, and I can slide this over. And I'll finish painting this in. Because we have to keep this fence. And now I'm going to delete all of this inside portion. Make that a little bit smaller. And maybe even a little smaller yet, so I can get the corners. Alright, zoom out. Go back to the quick mask tool. And now I should be able to hit delete and see what I have. Good enough. Command D for deselect. Alright, we want to keep this building, this yellow building that's right there, so I need to zoom in here. And now I'm going to show you a few techniques where we clone or copy items and bring it down. I'm going to go to the tool called the Clone Stamp tool. And if you look, there's a pattern stamp tool as well, but we'll be using the Clone Stamp tool. Now this tool is really cool. There is another tool that we can duplicate things as well, and I will show you that. But for now, we're going to try and bring this down. So I'm going to change the size of this so that it selects this portion and brings it down. The hardness is important as well. We can change the hardness, but it's okay. In this case, what I have is 0. That's fine. To use this tool, you're going to click on the Alt or Alt Option key on a Mac. And if you look at it, it looks like a target, which is what it is. We're taking a snapshot or a picture of that, and we're going to basically copy those pixels and then bring them down. So I'm going to click on that, I'm going to bring it down, and as you can tell, as I bring it down, it shows me, and this really helps, that it's aligning with the object above it, and that's what I want. So that's what I've just copied and pasted. I'm going to take another snapshot. In this case, I'm going to do it here because I want to get some of this line to be cleaned up a little bit. I'm going to go down and continue going down until I have this rail or railing all the way down to the bottom. And I see that this is a little bit, might need a smaller size in order to get that over just a little bit better. So I'm going to do that. I'm also going to try and bring this one up. And we're just about there with this railing. Now I need to get this one down. I need to get the edge of this as well, which I don't have a lot of color in here. I might bring this color here, the edge of that building, and see if I can. It's not too good there. Alright, I'll just continue going down with the building this way. Need some of this color in here. So what I'm doing is an Alt or Option clicking and then bringing it down and pasting it basically below. So I'm just little by little bringing that down. If I go too far, it will sometimes bring too much of the image above it, and that is not good. So just patiently going down. You'll see that sometimes there's shading that needs to take place, which means that you need to do the same feature. I'm going back and forth with the Alt option and selecting a portion of it and then going ahead and filling that. I can go from different locations as well to try and get that color. Okay, this portion here is a little bit tricky just to get all of this correct. Most people probably wouldn't see it, but as you work with this type of item, it is important to be careful and try. Now you can brush just a little bit by clicking and dragging, but be careful because it will select. If you select here, for example, real close, and as I drag and I click and I drag, it will sometimes bring that top part of the image down into there. Okay, I'm going to do a Command minus. Now the next thing is this fence that needs to be brought down. We have the people were eliminated, but then the fence is there. How do I get the fence down lower? Well, same tool should work for us. We can make it maybe a little bit bigger. I'd like to get, I don't really want the top of the fence because it's a different, has a different pattern to it. It's a little bit darker. I'm going to go ahead and Alt Option click here. I'm going to go ahead and make sure that we line up as we bring it down to cover up this portion here. Probably need to zoom in a little bit to see what I'm doing. Now one of the things I don't like about the clone stamp tool is that it can make the image a little bit blurry. If you make a mistake, and now in Photoshop it's a little bit different than Adobe Illustrator or Microsoft Word, for example, where you have undo, Command Z, Command Z, Command Z, as many as you want. Photoshop for the undo, we have one Command Z. There's also a possibility of doing more than that, undos, but it's Command, it's one I don't use very often. It's Command Option Z, which then can go back further than just the one move. Otherwise it will only do one. One of the powerful undo features in Photoshop is to go, first of all, we need the history tool, and that is right here in mine. If you don't see it, you'll see an arrow on the right hand side of three little squares. That is the history palette. If you don't see it, you can go to Window and then you can go down to History and bring that palette up. So in Photoshop, it names every item that you did. If I did a clone stamp, or if I did the magic wand, or if I did the smudge tool or whatever, it will, or the lasso tool, it will tell me what I did. It has, by default, it has 20, it records up to 20 actions, and I can go ahead and quickly select, like, there, I want that back. Well, that's starting to get back into here. Or there, if I go back into there, I'm see that side of the building, the yellow building, where I clone stamped that is now starting to reappear. So it'll do up to 20 steps. Photoshop also has a feature called a snapshot, and you can do that. If you get to a certain stage, you say, I like this, and if you remember to do that, you can create something called a new snapshot, which will record that up to that point, and then you can continue going. So just so that you're aware of that. You can also change the number of recorded ones as well. Okay, so we have the snapshot and the history palette that we just learned about. All right, one more item that I use sometimes to make to copy something, and that is the rectangular marquee tool. It's a selection tool. I can select, for example, oh, I thought I was on the marquee tool, sorry. I select the marquee tool. If I go across there and I click and drag, and I copy that, and I paste it, Command V, it has now pasted that same object right on top of the other one. And if you look at that, it has no smudging, and it looks quite good. Now I can continue doing that. There's another keystroke which is called the Alt option on your keyboard. If you click on the object and you click and you drag, and then you release your right hand, it will make a duplicate of your mouse key, if you're right-handed that is. It will make a duplicate of that. So that's another way of copying it. But each time you do that, it's creating a copy. If you look at your layers palette on the right-hand side, I have layer 1 copy, layer 1 copy 2, etc., etc. Now, if I don't want, when I'm done with this, I can go ahead and select those different layers, those 3 layers, by holding the Shift key, and then going to the Layers palette on the top right-hand corner, and then merge, I say merge visible, that might be a problem. Merge layers, and that merges those 3 layers that I have selected. Okay, we need to continue going. Let's use the clone stamp tool instead of the other one, but I wanted to demonstrate that technique of making copies rather than always using the clone stamp tool. I'm going to go ahead and select with the clone stamp tool. I'm going to select this portion here, drag it down. Oh, this is good because I made this copy on this layer, but I'm on this portion. One of the things when Photoshop, easy to forget, is that you need to be on the correct layer. I need to be on the duplicate layer that I created to make a copy of this portion, to bring it down to make copies of that. Now, yeah, I would like a portion of that. I don't want this light to be down there, but let's carefully do this and see if it'll work here. Yeah, that works. All right, I'm bringing this lamp, I think it's a lamp, down, and I'm filling this portion up here. Like I said before, the clone stamp tool has a tendency to blur, and so it's not ideal as far as making copies. I'm at, yeah, my opacity is at 100%. I'm on normal mode, which is fine, but I want to make sure that I do this. I'm going to go ahead and select both of these. I'm going to go to the flyout menu and merge the visible layers. These two layers are visible, so I'm going to merge these two. So now the fence and this other background are together. So Alt Option key, now if I select it, I can come down and it will then copy this portion here. One of the things that happen that isn't, oops, undo a little bit here, I'm not being too careful, is that it creates a little bit of a pattern when you have something that small. So let me select here, and if I go down and I just click and drag, it will also clone stamp tool. If I go there and I drag, have to be careful. Whoops, no. Let me try that again. I'm not sure what that is, but okay, going down. I'll tell you a little bit of a story since I normally show my class, but since you guys are online, um, I went to the United Nations, and my sister worked for the United Nations, and so I did a panoramic photograph of the whole thing. It was really awesome. It was fun to be there, and I had a camera which they allowed me to bring in, probably because it was my sister, and so I did a panoramic, and I was able to uh, do that, and then I saw someone's bald head, so I ended up using Photoshop and fixing that. I see someone here, but they have a cowboy hat, so I'm thinking that I'm going to go ahead and leave this person here, so we'll just leave this person here. Won't have any legs, though. That might be a bit of a problem. You may take him out or you may leave him in. I'm not sure what's better there. Okay, so you've got the building added on. You've got the fence, which I probably should have nice and straight. Let me go ahead and straighten that out just a bit more. Go back to the clone stamp tool and Alt Option, and let's just straighten that out. We're going to be placing dirt here. So, but I don't want it to be like, what is this sitting on? Let's make sure that's a little bit straighter on the edge there. All right, that's pretty good. All right. I'm pleased with that. We now need to take out the tarmac that's here. We can go ahead and use the lasso tool. And it's a freehand tool. I'm going to go around the fence post. I probably should leave that shadow, but that's okay. Actually not. It's okay. And I just want to go around this train. And it selects that portion, and I'm going to hit delete and delete that. We're going to be filling this tarmac with dirt so that it looks a little bit more authentic. Command D for deselect. I'm going to use the magic wand right here and hit delete. Command D for deselect. I guess there's some tarmac here as well, but it's further over, so it's okay. The next item that we have to delete on here would be the words that are up on the tower. So I'm going to go over to the tower itself. It says Knott's. I guess it's Knott's Ghost Town. And in this case, let's go ahead and get rid of that sign because it's not a ghost town, it's an old Western picture. And I'm going to click the Alt Option key and drag it up and paint it just a little bit so it gets rid of that. Nope, can't do that. Try and line it up with the wood panels there. And like I said, when you're doing this, you need to get the shading correctly. So you don't just go from here and just go all over the whole thing. You need to get the correct lighting for that. I'm going to try, and then I like to line up the lines as well. See how it's kind of getting a little blurry, so it's not exactly what the ideal. I'll go below it and see if I can get some of this. Line it up. Maybe from here. That looks pretty good. Alright, again that's a little bit blurry. It'll be alright. Some of these guide wires or the lines here have disappeared. I don't know if you see them. We could probably just delete them and it'll be just fine. I'll just zoom in so you can see what I'm talking about. Right there, there's some wires. And since they were so light, they basically just didn't copy over when we did our selection. I'll just delete them. Alright, the instructions say to delete the signs on the inside here and fill this with some bars to make it a jail. So I'm going to go ahead and zoom in here. Holding the spacebar key, moving it over. And so we need to get rid of all of these signs. And there are quite a few. When I zoom in, I see more than what I did before. We can just delete this and fill it with a dark color. This is going to be a very dark scene anyway as far as the lighting. But right now I'm going to go ahead and Alt Option select that and fill this in here. Okay, I'm clicking and dragging in this case. I don't always have to just do the click one time. Okay, but then that doesn't give me any lines because I can see some wood pattern here, which is kind of nice to indicate. Yeah, right there. And better keep that fence there. There's another sign below here. And I think I'll change. I do like it a little bit soft on the edges, just because it doesn't cover things up too much, too harsh an edge, which would be noticeable. It kind of blends in a little bit better. Alright, here, we're coming. This is the harder part. The easier part's coming up after we get through with this. I have taught photography in the past too, and it's definitely easier to make sure that your picture doesn't have distracting backgrounds and things like that. That you have to Photoshop out, which can take hours and hours of work, and then to have it correct when you take the picture. So I recommend you take the time in taking a picture to make it correct. Is this a sign as well? I think it is. Can't read it, but it looks like a sign. And I think this is a sign, definitely. Okay, we'll just get rid of this one. And let's see what we have. Not bad. Let's zoom in a little bit here, because we now need to get rid of all of these signs. Alright. I'm trying to decide which is the best way of doing it. Hide clone stamp tool, or I just fill it in with a darker color. Let's get a darker color. Then let's get the eyedropper tool. And with the eyedropper tool, we're going to select this background color, and it's going to create that in the fill. I am then going to go ahead and with the lasso tool, I'm wondering maybe I should just use a different tool. Let's go to the magnetic lasso tool. Now the magnetic lasso tool is good for high contrast. Make sure you do not let go of the mouse until you have made a complete circuit of the whole thing. Now you can click, and that defines a corner. You can see how it's kind of, to me, it's like a spider web. See, I click there. Oh, not good, not good, not good. All right. I can then go to my masking tool if I want to again, and I can then refine my selection just a bit more. Yeah. You can tell I like the quick mask tool. And I hope you do too. But anyway, whichever works for you. I have this. I have the foreground color. I'm going to get the paint bucket tool, and I'm going to then fill this area with that color. The other method of filling that would be to get the brush tool, and the brush tool will also fill that in. I've done that. I increase the brush size, and I can just, because it's selected, I can then drag over the whole thing and paint that in. I'm going to decrease that paintbrush size before I get, like, next time I come around. Oh, that's huge. Okay, Command D for deselect. There's that background. If I want to paint a little bit more without the selection tool, I can then just drag over that portion. Okay, we are doing quite well here. Nice, it's rather black in there. One of the things that's required is to create some bars that go in here to make it a little bit more natural. Oh, before we do that, there is this person which I'm going to delete. So, holding the Alt Option key, let's make that a little bit bigger. It's okay. Coming from the other direction, maybe. And I just want it to look natural. I mean, it doesn't have to be perfect in its lighting, but let's get that. And I'll follow the fence. I might be going faster than I need to. Alright, let's get below, and there we go. I know the image is small and probably people won't see it. Oh, we don't want her in the picture. Okay, looks like a water wheel in the back. That's fine. All right. You're going to have to get a few items. One of them is bars, and I found some bars online that I could use for this purpose. These bars are for the jail. So I'm going to go ahead and select these bars. Actually, I have selected them already. When you select a layer, you can see that it's a lighter gray. Okay, and the eye is on. If it's not on and you go over it, then it shows a circle with a diagonal in it, meaning you can't work in there. So make sure the eye is on and the layer is highlighted so that you know which layer you're working on. I'm going to go up and I need to transform this. So if you go up to Edit and then you go to Free Transform, you can then drag the corners down, resize it, and we're going to move that over, and it's a little bit of an angle. We're just going to move it over into position. Let's take a look a little bit closer. Apply the transformation, yes. And it's not quite in the way I want it. Transform, more of a perspective is what I want. I'm trying to drag this one corner down. Now if I get the direct selection tool, that it's not allowing me to. I'm thinking Adobe Illustrator, so apologies there. But I wanted to go ahead and try and bring this one corner down. I'm going to go to Edit, skew just a little bit here, and that worked just fine. Let's see what I've done. Yes, the skew worked quite well. Excellent. Apply the transformation. Yes. Oh, I probably should be a little higher on that. All right, that bothers me. I'm going to go ahead and go to Edit, Free Transform, and just maybe bring it up just a little bit so that that covers that, and then push Return, and that takes care of that. That's good. Looks quite natural. All right. Next item here is to place some dirt on the ground. And if you see, I have this dirt that I selected. It's dark. It's just a black square in the image here, right on top of the train. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and make it large enough to cover up the background here. I mean the ground portion. So I'm going to go to Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to bring it across all the way. I'm going to bring it across to the other side all the way. I'm going to bring it down to there and up to there. So I've covered up that whole portion. You'll notice that the bars are showing, and the reason for that is because the bars, as far as the layer order, are on the very top. So if you want the dirt to be behind everything, the object, then you need to move it down. I'm going to click on the layer, the dirt layer, drag it. Actually, I can't at this point. I'll have to do it later. Let me just push Return. I'm going to click on the dirt layer and drag it down so that it's lower than layer 1. It now is below everything here. And I'm going to work a little bit more on trying to fix some of the, just you can see that the lighting is not quite right, that there's some shadow going on here. I would possibly also change that dirt so that it wasn't quite, it looks pretty good. I got a dark dirt. I chose a dark dirt because I want it, we're going to do a sunset scene. It's going to be a little bit dark, and so therefore that's perfectly fine. All right, let's go back to this layer here, and I'm going to go to the toolbox, and I'm going to go to the, I can see the dodge tool is on top, but I'm going to go to a tool called the burn tool. The burn tool will darken a portion of the image, and that's what I would like to do to the bottom of the train. So I'm going to click on the burn tool, and I'm going to just darken that. So I just, if you notice, you have a size, you also have midtones, exposure. So if it's not doing anything, possibly because your exposure is really low, so I'm going to go ahead and darken this just a little bit more. So I'm not being too careful, because it's going to be dark at the very bottom of the train. A little bit of light, that's not too bad, but I don't want it to be extremely light so that I can see that edge there. Alright, it's looking pretty good. The next item that we're going to do, and it looks like I'm not quite ready for this. I thought I was ready for this. I'm going to go online and get a picture of a sunset and then put that in here as well. So bear with me for just a little bit while I select a picture off the internet. Apologies here. So sunset images, and just select one that's fairly dark. You don't need a bunch of water. I'm going to select one, copy it, and put it on there. Now when you go into the internet, if you want to be correct, you can select images that are royalty free, that don't have copyright issues, etc., etc. And those are probably the ones that I would recommend that you use. You also can select ones with the higher resolution rather than something that's rather pixelated and that wouldn't look good. I'm going to select one that looks kind of pretty. Right click on it, and oh, what's going on here? Hold on. I'm sorry. All right, and we're going to go ahead and create a new layer. And in this layer, that's good because I didn't actually go over this yet. And the new layer is in the bottom of the layers palette. It's next to the trash can. It's create a new layer. If you double click, you can then name that layer, and I'm going to name this layer Sunset. And since I have it selected, I can then go ahead and paste that picture on there. The picture itself is covering up everything else, which isn't bad. All I have to do is drag that down probably to the very bottom, and that works quite fine. Alright, maybe a little brighter than I need. I can darken that picture. You can go to your different settings for adjustment layers if you want to. You can also go to image adjustments and change the brightness, contrast, hue, saturation, curves. There are a whole bunch of things that I haven't covered in this class yet. So that's a little bit dark. Light. I want to make it, whoa, that really brings out the red in that picture. That's amazing. Alright, let's click OK on that one. It's not too important. The trees are a little bit light. We're going to have to change this background image here as well. So again, we can go to adjustment layers, which don't affect the overall go back to here, but we'll go to the same thing here as far as, I'm sorry, if I make sure, I'm getting a little bit lost. Let me make sure I'm on the right layer, image, adjustments, and I'm going to darken this whole picture as well. So let me go to the picture, and I'm going to darken the picture so it looks more like a night scene, and that looks a little bit better. I don't want it too dark. I want to be able to see some of the detail in there. I'm going to click OK. Alright. The tree branches there are a little bit light, but that's okay. I guess we can leave that there. Alright, one of the other items that we need in this picture is the light that comes off of the train itself. And I can show you two different methods. There's always more than one way of doing something. In this case, I'm going to get the paintbrush tool. I'm going to select a color in the swatches, and I'm going to go with a nice yellow color here. I don't want pastel. I'll go ahead and select this color, and I want the size to be about the size of the light itself. So I'm going to go ahead a little bit larger, and that's approximately correct, about 60. I'm also going to change the opacity down in this case, down to about 60. And coming off of here, that looks like it's pointing straight, so I'm going to go ahead and try and make a nice straight line. It's a little bit crooked. I'm also, undo that. Undo the whole thing here. It's Command Alt Z, and be a little bit brighter and a little bit bigger. Okay. Oh, so this is the hard part as far as getting it straight. One more time. Hopefully I can have a steady hand. Okay. One of the things that I played with this a little bit before, and I thought, hey, that's good, but it's not quite what I want. So I went ahead and made another one that went on top of that. So I made it slightly smaller. Now you can change the hardness. Actually, I wanted it soft on the edges. I didn't want it hard on the edges. And then also the size, I made this a little bit smaller. And I changed and I made this from the light source itself. I made it so that this was in the middle of the light, so that you have some intensity going off of that. You go over it again, it will make it a little bit brighter, and that's what I did on that. I'd like to get this, but I'm afraid that it's going to change that a little bit. Oh, sorry. All right, that's one method of doing it. Now I'm going to go to the history, and I'll show you something else in case you want to do that. So back to changing that, moving that out of the way. One of the things that I did was I painted that color right in there, and so I made the size, yeah, I needed about 60 again. Oops, that'll be fine. Oh, no, it won't. A little bit bigger. And then what I did was I used a smudge tool. The smudge tool is below the bucket tool. Now you may not see the smudge tool, you might see the blur tool, but if you see a little arrow at the bottom of that tool, that means that there are more tools inside of there. So I went down to the smudge tool. Smudge tool, you can take that and you can then click on that item and drag it, making sure you're on, oh, unfortunately, I did something incorrectly. And that is I needed to create a new layer, which is just for the light. So I'm going to go ahead and name it light. And now I'm going to place that color in there. I'm going to try. Oh, because I'm on the smudge tool. I need to place that color in there. I'm going to do it again and again. And now I'm going to go to the smudge tool and I'm going to click and drag that out. And you can change that strength so that it is more, it can drag further or less. But you can see how I'm just dragging that color out. I've used this tool for other purposes as well, just kind of to help it things blend a little bit more if I don't have the color. So you can use either tool, I don't mind. Alright, Command minus. Oh, I can see now that I zoom out that I didn't quite get at the very bottom. I didn't get the whole thing. Alright. That looks pretty good. The third method that I used for the light, which I don't think I'll show you, is to use the pen tool. Now this is what I would have used in Illustrator, but it works a little bit differently in Photoshop. I can see that the picture is lower now that I've zoomed out. The background sunset picture isn't covering the whole thing. We can fix that. Anyway, back to what I was saying. The pen tool, if you click a point, and just drag around, and then you can fill it with color. There is a gradient path tool, and you can make that work. I'm not going to go into detail on that one. I'm going to move this image up so that it covers that. So I didn't see it when I was zoomed in at all. Okay, we're getting close to being done. The next item, which on your sheet, it says to place a picture of yourself. I'm going to go ahead. I have a friend. I'm in a singing group. It's like a barbershop quartet. I'm telling you a little bit about myself. And he was wearing this outfit, and I thought, oh, good. Let me take a picture of him. So I used my cell phone, and I took a picture of him, and he didn't mind at all. So his name is Greg. He is wearing some cool mustache. I don't have that cool a mustache, but I do have one. So let's go ahead and you're supposed to put yourself in there. I'm going to use the magic wand. And I'm going to select this background portion. I'm going to hit delete. Because the smart object is not directly editable. We now need to make this object directly editable. So to do so, you go up to Layer, and if you rasterize, a smart object, convert to a, let's see, I want to make it so that I can edit that, and I'm not sure I've done this right. I deleted the background before, so I'm not sure what's going on. Layer, smart object, convert to new smart. Edit contents. Okay, so I'm going back to the original image, and here I can delete this portion. Oh, I can't. Layer, smart objects, edit contents, delete, delete, yes. Sorry about this. All right. Running into technical difficulties here. I'll try using the eraser tool and see. Nope, it won't let me. Oh, because I'm on a... I made a quick mask of that object. Disable layer mask. And now maybe it'll work. Rasterize a smart object. That's what I wanted to do in the first place. Okay, select that, hit delete, there, delete, Command T. Alright, delete that, Command D, hit the move tool. I'm going to go back and move this object. Well, actually, I'm going to use the move tool, and I'm going to drag this. Oh, I see one more item here. So I'm going to use the lasso tool, and I'm going to drag around here and delete that portion. Command D, get the move tool, drag this over to the recovered train, place that on there, and I'm going to delete this original layer that caused me grief. Or did I delete the right one? Oh no. Okay. Alright, image, I'm sorry, layer, rasterize, smart object. Now I should be able to delete it, which is what I wanted to do. Sorry about that. Okay, now that I have him there, I need to go to Edit, Free Transform. I need to make him approximately the size that would be correct. I'm going to place him here. I'm then going to push Return to make him fit in there. And then I'm going to bring in, hopefully I don't have this much problem with my own face, but I'm going to bring in my own face and place that in the image. So I select the layer with my face. There are a few things for me to make this work. One is I'm facing the wrong direction. So I go up to Edit, I go to Transform, and I flip horizontal. And then I go ahead and select the magic wand. I select this portion here, hold shift so that I don't have to do too much of the other. And then I hit, I better use the mask tool and make a better selection of the image itself. I'm going to use the brush tool. Since it's a small image, I have to reduce the size here so that I can make sure that I get this correctly. And then I have the wrong tool, so I'm going to go ahead and, alright. need to switch. I'm going to change the opacity to 100 on this one, and I'm going to fill this portion in just a little bit. Oh, actually, I want to select that portion. Make sure I get the ear, top of the head, the cheek, which was coming off, chin. All right. Huh. All right. Let's see here. And what I want to do is delete that inside portion. And we hit delete. Command D for deselect. I probably should get rid of the collar, but I can erase that. Command D for deselect. I can then take and just use the eraser like I said and just delete the collar. And then let's move that down, and I need to transform it. So edit, free transform, hold the shift key. I better see if that's approximately the same size. I need to darken it. So I'm going to go ahead and image, sorry, because I've scaled it, it doesn't allow me to do anything until I say, yep, that's the size I want it. Now I can go ahead and adjust the darkness of that image. Whoa. Darker. Okay, it's not quite what I would like. I would like to show you some other techniques for making adjustments, but I haven't done that. Let's see here. And that's using the curves tool in Photoshop, excuse me. Okay, let's see how we can do this. Move tool, I can move it over. And I can take that image and place it behind him. And then I can erase if I want to. Sorry. I'm on the wrong layer. I didn't realize that. So let me take a look and see what I'm erasing. Yeah. I better go back to history. And know what I'm doing. Alright. Sorry about that. Okay, leave that one on, but make sure I'm on the right layer this time and erase just around the hat. Alright. If I want to, I can go to the burn tool and darken that. Oh, I have to be on the right image. I'm sorry again. I need to darken that, except the red color is a little bit much. And that's it. That's That's all you need to do for this assignment. Oh, see, I said that and now I see something that is wrong. So let me go back to here and use the magic wand, select that portion, hit delete, Command D for deselect, and that's a little bit better. Command 0. Now we are done with the image. Hope you enjoyed this and hope you learned a lot. Have a good day.